Little spontaneous live stream once again. So, uh, this is something that ironically I've had coming for me for a very long time. Around the holidays or so. Well, technically we met after the holidays, but regardless, as a holiday gift, I received this Lego Minions Rise of Gru set 7550 Minions Kung Fu Battle. Ages 6 and up, 310 pieces and 3 figures. I have not opened this thing or built it up to this point. Mostly because, well, Minions, they're okay. They're not my thing. I know plenty of people who like them. I'm sort of on the curious side just because of the Lego aspect for, just how they make the figures and the overabundance of bananas, and in this particular set, not only bananas, but also frogs. So I know that this set kind of has some notoriety among Lego designers for using the most of the same element in a single set or so. It's like, okay. They love their frogs. I don't know why but they do. And this was one of those prominent sets to do so. I think it was later surpassed by the bonsai tree, if I remember correctly, because it was used for many of the petals, the leaves on the tree itself. Although, this was actually a good time for me to save up the set and build it, because I had actually watched the Minions movie this is based on, Rise of Gru. So my friends had talked about this over the past month or so, that they wanted to go see this movie, and I was willing to go with it because, hey, I want to see my friends, and also, I haven't seen a Minions or any Despicable Me movie in a long time. I'll get into that in just a bit. But basically, I I also thought, hey, I chose the last time we got to get together and see a movie with Sonic 2, seeing that on opening day. So it felt fair enough that I would see it opening day with them. That was their choice, and I'm okay going with that. Because again, I still get to see them and have a good time. So part of the reason why there was nothing celebrated on July 1st, 2022 for the 10-year anniversary of Maniac for Bricks, you can count on the Minions as part of that. I mean, I was also working, so I had that going on as well. Um, if I do anything, yeah, I won't unfortunately be documented as uploaded July 1st, 2022. We'll just move on from there. So things will happen eventually, whatever the case may be. This is not one of those things. But I felt like, hey, now that I've seen the movie, and not only am I interested in building this, but I'm also interested in reviewing it at the same time. So, this is one of the sets that came out long before the movie, as many merchandise products do in general, but this came out in 2020. The movie was supposed to release much earlier, and I believe it got delayed, as other movies did around the pandemic. But we still got the merchandise. So the set was still on store shelves. There's still plenty of other, pretty much any Lego Minions that are out there because of the movie, but they've been out long before the movie because the movie was delayed. So that's interesting to me. This is also another Lego set that I will be doing a stopwatch counter on side of it so that I can actually time how long it takes me to build this. And not because of this set in particular, but I've been trying to do that for a long time with Lego sets. I've even done it with other ones that are on live streams. Going back through and counting how long it took me to build sets. I sometimes talk with other Lego fans about that. How long it took to build this and that and the other. So, I think I've even mentioned that before on reviews. Give or take, like a past year or two, some reviews, I would say it took me this long to build it. I've seen other reviews where they do that as well. So, yeah, here we go. So I am going to be reviewing the movie while talking with you about the movie. Um, as far as spoilers, I guess it's not that much shocking as far as the movie itself goes. Uh, I guess spoiler warning when I bring up the spoiler warning. But I'll just go through the plot as it is. I'll start the timer when I open up the bag and start on the first step. Only fair. That's what I've done before. So prepare for an influx of bananas and frogs. I will have a live stream later for those who are wondering, because I did this past couple of years and I said I was going to have it for this year. I will do a live stream later of building Lego Technic sets, because that's something I've also done almost at around this time every year. So from my background before this movie, I have only really been faintly interested in the Minions franchise. I do just call it the Minions franchise, but because by this point, while Gru is a big part of it, and Despicable Me is technically the name of the first title and several of the titles, it's more so remembered because of the Minions, or at least, marketed that way. So I will call it as such. Um, I've only been faintly interested in it in the past, and not because of any Facebook memes or anything like that. I actually thought about opening with that, and I was like, hey, it's that thing from Facebook that I see all the time about Mondays and all the relatable stuff. Anyways, I've only watched Despicable Me before this, and around the time that it came out, I thought it was okay. It seemed like nothing that was too remarkable of a film, although it did have some fun lines and things. Nothing that seemed like, oh, I want to see more of this, or really beckons more out of it. Although it did seem a little bit odd that these things exist, these yellow Tic Tacs or Twinkies, which, funny enough, they marketed with those afterwards. I think they even make reference to it in this film. Um, it just happens that way, I guess. So, anyways, um, it didn't really do a lot for me for the original Despicable Me that it warranted sequels, in my opinion. Um, but they happened anyways. And Illumination at this point is pretty much known for this franchise first and foremost, and then you have things like, I don't know, Sing, and maybe a few other things. I know that they've done other stuff, but you know that's what they know. That's what they're known for most is this. And heck, they even make reference to it. I don't know if they do this in every Minions movie because I haven't seen any other ones before this. Um, I don't know if they make reference to this in every Minions movie, but when they do the opening title, where it's like where it shows the studio name, they basically have the Minions come in, not only presenting it but also crashing it apart, and they tear apart the word Illumination until it makes the word Minion. Half-Life 3 confirmed. I don't know if that's supposed to be some kind of like subtle message or anything, but sure. Okay. Um so even though I hadn't seen the first Minions movie, Despicable Me 2, Despicable Me 3, I don't even know if there's anything beyond that, TV or whatever. This being the second entry for me into the Minions franchise, surprisingly, I liked this movie. I did not expect to be fully on board with it, but I did. So welcome Epic Plays Roblox and Mayo Hasco. Good to see you all here. Yeah, I was actually surprised that I liked this movie. It gave me some backstory to a little bit about the Minions, a little bit about Gru, a little bit about even other characters like Dr. Nefario, which showed up in the first film. This film, it kind of did something interesting where, like, the first film, yes, it had a short bit of backstory, to explain a little bit about Gru's upbringing, and mostly just, he's being a very inventive boy, and basically nobody pays attention to him. Nobody, including his mother, acknowledges that, or even whatever, supports it. Um, and then he wants to be a supervillain. It's kind of like his life goal, or so to speak. Um, this movie builds upon that. It actually says, "Hey, this is how he starts to become a supervillain. This is how he's getting more involved with it, or a little more deeply about why he wants to be a supervillain and how he has other, for lack of a better term, role models he looks up to." Even though they're also supervillains, that kind of stuff. So it's like, oh, okay. Well, there's only 4 stickers, not bad. And basic shapes. It should be easy to apply them by hand. If I got it the right way. Yeah, okay, that's good. But so yeah, it was kind of interesting how a bunch of those things played together. It still didn't explain a lot as far as how minions came to be. I just assumed that they were part of the world, and kind of the impression that a lot of characters gave, when minions were moving about, and they don't belong to Gru or have any real alliance with Gru. It's like, yeah, they just exist. They're just here, and we're fine with that. That nobody is like repulsed by them. Nobody is, really, having a problem with them existing or whatever. They're just here. Like literally, one of the minions chills with a dude on a bike for a good portion of the movie as they travel to where they need to be. He's like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. I did not expect that to be just so, going along with it. Anyways, basically the movie, while it does have Gru involved with it for quite a bit, it mostly revolves around the minions themselves. Taking a lot from their perspective on getting things done. Basically, the plot, there's a MacGuffin that the supervillains in the supervillain group called the Vicious Six, they steal this artifact, they kick out one of their own, and they are basically trying to hire for someone new. Gru is one of many who is going in for an interview, has an application sent in, and you know he gets the opportunity to get an interview, but everyone basically mocks him because he's just a kid, and this is an adult group, and it's like, yeah, no, there's nothing you could do or nothing that it's gonna make you stand out, So, and it already kind of built with that because it's like, again, they show earlier in the film, he's in a classroom and he wants to be a supervillain, and basically his peers make fun of him. His mom is at home, and she basically dismisses him almost entirely. It's very short that she was in the film, but I don't think it really needed that much either. So it's like, okay, that's fine. So he, before leaving the interview, steals their MacGuffin and tries to use that as a way of like, oh, maybe they'll like me now. Maybe they'll think, maybe they'll hire me as a supervillain because I was able to best them. I was able to get the thing away from them, and they're usually, masters of their craft. Doing this stuff. So, okay, smart thinking there. Something to consider. However, one of the other the supervillain that got kicked out is the one who kidnaps Gru because they also want the thing, and basically has their own motive to try to show up the Vicious Six, I guess down to 5 now, but still. Um, but eventually, while Gru is being held hostage, the minions basically get involved because it's like, oh well, they were part of task of getting this MacGuffin back to his house, but one of them lost it in a funny sequence, or played up for laughs, I should say. And they try to get not only Gru back because they're so deeply attached to him, but also, to actually try to get him to, the job that he wants, Even though he basically tried to brush them off earlier. He basically said, like, oh, I don't need you guys with me. I'm going to do this on my own, kind of thing, to go to the interview. And it's like, well, yeah, they were kind of important because they helped you escape. So anyways, yeah, a lot of the movie takes place with, like, Gru being held hostage, trying to understand this, the supervillain a bit more, but also being kind of fond of them, almost like trained with them, actually. And a lot of the movie shows the minions on how they try to get the MacGuffin back, or even try to find where Gru is. So this scene in particular, this part that I'm building, is kind of towards the end of the film, or midway through the film or so. A lot of it takes place in San Francisco, as they call it. San Bambito or something like that, because the minion language is just enough gibberish away from our own. Um, and does this thing where it's like they have like the MacGuffin is some kind of like ancient artifact, standard run of the mill stuff that will activate on the Chinese New Year at midnight, and basically, um, they run through Chinatown trying to, having a lot of this conflict happen. So, fair enough. This actually makes a lot of sense. What's presented in the set is actually a scene from the film. Um, but there's also a good portion of this that's like it's almost like they put two or three scenes together, because there's on one hand, a couple of these minions are dressed up, and I was really curious about this just when I saw the sets come out. I'm like, why are they dressed in Kill Bill outfits? Why do they have like these orange and black jumpsuits? What's up with that? It's basically just there to be a funny, cheeky reference. Just as like in the film, doesn't mean anything specifically. It's not like they get that a particular way. They just show up with those on. Um, but they do try to they do actually have like a little bit where where some of the minions actually learn martial arts from an acupuncture woman, that basically just like overheard a kerfuffle they had, and helped them out, and they went to train with her. They do adapt some of those skills later in the film, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, I was actually surprised I liked this film. There were a couple of throwbacks to the original Minions movie with like using the Despicable Me theme. They had scenes that were replicated almost a bit like shot for shot with the original film. So like the freezeway scene in the coffee shop in the first film, they do that pretty much the same, but with Kid Gru, and it's instead he's going to an ice cream shop with a cheese ray instead of a freeze ray, which I thought was kind of fun. That's literally just people gooed in cheese. Back to almost there. So even though it does like copy a couple things, and normally for a sequel, that would be like a bad thing. Prequel, it would normally be presented as like a bad thing, where it's like, oh, they're just running over the same ground, they're not doing anything different. I think in this way it actually adds to it. There were even other things like Dr. Nefario, like I mentioned earlier. You see where he started and how he gets involved with Gru. And it actually feels less of, oh, okay, this is just here, but actually feels like it's adding to the scenery. It's adding to the world building. It's like, okay, this makes sense here. So I'm okay with that. I'm very okay with that being a thing, because it actually helped with not only my connection with the film, but also um, kind of put things together, where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, Gru has wanted to be a supervillain for a long time, and sure, he could have done any of that, whatever, like the freezeway sequence could have existed as an adult, fine, but it is cool seeing that like he's basically had this, for his whole life kind of thing. He's wanted to do this for a very long time. Um, coming up with different plans and inventions and tactics and whatever to get what he wants, even if it's something as simple as ice cream. And it's also funny that following that, he uses the ice cream to taunt people at a fitness center, just standing in the window eating it. And they're all like pedaling on bikes, looking longingly at the ice cream itself. So it's definitely jam packed with jokes. I can't say every single one of them lands, or at least it lands for me. I counted three different times that butts showed up on screen. I didn't even think I was gonna have a count of more than one. Yes, it's animated, but it's still a butt. It's still two round cheeks that I can't believe I'm even saying on a YouTube channel. I'm gonna have to let that sink in. David Russell, welcome to the stream. Sorry if I mispronounced the name. Um, but yes, I did see you show up. Oh, thank you. So yeah, three different butts. One of them actually being Gru's. I think the other two were just the minions, but still, you know, it's still got that element of kid humor, between the butts or the farts. There were only like one or two fart jokes, which I'm kind of impressed with. I don't remember if there were any not burping jokes, and if there were, I just probably slid past it. But that's usually another like low hanging fruit for an animated kids film. But let's see. The fart joke, it was kind of in an interesting way that I remember the fart joke being used. It's that Gru basically wants to get into the movie Jaws, and they explicitly show it's Jaws. Like, this movie takes place during the 70s, first of all, and second of all, it has a big poster in front of the movie theater. How he makes it past the line in the first place, it kind of baffles me, because he just walks straight into the theater when they show that there's like a long line of people next to him. But either way, he walks right in. He takes what looks like a smoke grenade, and it's actually filled with farts. It's kind of like a button activated sort of thing. It's not like he provided the fart, on screen into it, which, thank goodness, I didn't want to see that. And again, I can't believe I'm saying this stuff on YouTube. It's now public record. Anyways, so he uses he like presses a button, throws it in there, it detonates, and it fills the room with farts so that everybody leaves the theater. Then he walks in with a mask on, just a big gas mask or whatever, to watch the film. Stud Studious, welcome to the stream. I'm doing all right. My throat is currently a little sore, but otherwise, doing okay. So even though I didn't do any celebration on YouTube or most social media yesterday for the 10-year anniversary of Maniac for Bricks, I did still have a good time yesterday. So yeah, so that's how that that fart joke in there is just basically to as a tactic. It's not just, oh, this character farted, that's the joke, it's funny. No. Okay, at least you're a little bit better than that. Thank you, and congratulations. Let's see, what else? I don't know if this minion shows up in other films, but they had a heavy emphasis on this character named Otto. One of the specific minions that's like a little bit more chubby than the rest of them. He's got braces. He likes to talk a lot. He has a lot of personality. That's something I find kind of surprising. Stuart, Kevin, Bob, and Otto, were actually minions you wanted to pay attention to in the film. This is kind of the stigma that I've had, and I'm sure plenty of other people had that. It definitely does have a Monkey Kid color scheme. So that's one reason why I liked it already. Even if I didn't watch the Minions movie, I probably would have built it at some point just to add it in with Monkey Kid sets, just to have that fun with it. But so yeah, this is supposed to be the medallion or whatever that they have in the film. That's the MacGuffin. So, anyways, that's the stigma that I and probably plenty of other people had about Minions in general, is that they kind of have this swarm effect. You have so many of them that can be made on screen, and maybe subtle changes here and there about their size, their shape, their a little bit of what they do or what they're wearing. I've seen a lot of times just from in general, and some of it in this film as well, that the minions just kind of dress in different clothes, sometimes for a disguise or something. I've always thought of the minions as like the next version of Rabbids from the Rayman series. Yeah, they're actually related in some way because Rayman was already a platforming series from the PS1, PS2, and 64 had one, and was already known for its own thing as being a platformer. But sometime later, um, the studio who made them had also included these kind of enemies, I guess, called rabbits. And it literally looks like rabbits, but a lot more cartoony. Honestly, it looks a lot like Minions, so I wouldn't be surprised if they just, copied and pasted a lot of elements. Um, they didn't speak English. They basically had one or two quirky sounds that that would constantly, utter as they were moving around. They looked very similar. Again, only having a few costume changes here and there, or a little bit of differences between size and height, or whatever. Um, but they became a huge part of the marketing for Rayman, and well, obviously the game, but like the franchise afterward. So it felt like, okay, I'm losing that element of it being Rayman. I'm not even like, I've never even played a Rayman game, but at least was familiar with that character on his own and thought it was a unique, style, just in its own right. But now it's like, oh yeah, this thing exists, but we have rabbits, and then they made a Nickelodeon show, I think, out of them, or something. It's like, okay, sure, but wasn't this all about another guy? And these are just supposed to be a villain or something, just off to the side from the main thing, you know. So, anyways, that's what I thought about Minions for a long time, and it didn't help that there were a lot of Facebook memes that would use that, and I use the term meme loosely, um, because it's literally just copy paste of some phrase that you would find in like a Hallmark gift card, but with a minion on it, and that's it. And they got shared around constantly. I know because I saw it among my family and friends a few times. So I was like, okay, sure. I'm not gonna tell them that this is whatever. And I kind of said that before, To each their own. It's not hurting anybody. It just annoys me, and annoying things aren't inherently, uh, harmful. It's just something you don't want to deal with. Brett's built. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, I'm actually surprised about it too. What can I say? Overanalyze just about anything I come across. So there we have that. Um, but yeah, I actually enjoyed this film, and honestly, kind of want to give Despicable Me another chance. Not even just that film, but I mean like maybe some of the previous films that released. Like that's what this effect this movie had on me. It's like, okay, maybe they actually have something with merit here. Maybe there's something more to it than just these little guys just being on screen and whatever. Um, I would like to get a Gru minifigure, because even though before it's like when I saw the set's first release, I was like, wait, we don't even have a Gru, like an adult Gru. Like, what is that gonna do for us without, if there's a kid Gru without an adult Gru, I kind of want to see that. I don't even know if anybody's made it as a custom as a minifigure, but you already got the torso, so he shares the same outfit, kid to adult, so hopefully it would uh it would match up nicely. But I also thought, hey, maybe, after this film, now I'm like, hey, maybe this is okay. The Kid Gru was fine in the film, literally just a pitched up Steve Carell. So, I'm not having anything wrong with that. It's fine. I think the fact of the minions not being annoying in this film had to do with there was a nice balance between when the minions showed up and when they went to other things or other people were around. So it's not like you just heard gibberish for almost 2 hours or over an hour and a half or whatever. You had other people talking in between, whether it's Gru himself talking to the minions or other characters talking to the minions, in other forms or whatever. Um, that was fine, and I can deal with that. It had like a good balance between like when the minions did something and when Gru was figuring things out. Like it wasn't again too long that they were doing stuff, and then of course meeting up later in the film. Um, I don't know anything about the Vicious Six. I think I might have seen I know that there are other supervillains in the franchise. I just don't know of them that much. Oh, um, Back 3. So another throwback that they did, sort of, or at least it felt like that to me. Again, I don't know how established these things are in other films, so maybe it's just kind of like, oh yeah, we're here again, kind of thing. But for me, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. The Bank of Evil was in the film for a little bit of it, and again, I didn't feel like this was a way of saying, haha, remember this? It was more of, oh yeah, this is cool. This, but because it actually had a purpose being there. Once again, it's not only just saying, oh yeah, this is with that really funny looking guy, and I mean, a lot. Let's be real. A lot of characters in this franchise, they're huge caricatures in one way or another. It's like it's almost Dr. Seussian of how varied they are. But either way, it's like okay, yeah, we're not only here seeing this guy again, and he mentions or describes about his son Vector, which we know from the first film. Um, it also actually moves the plot forward. It moves some character development forward. It really adds something that, made sense being there. I also liked that the one of the villain hideouts was called Criminal Records, and it's literally just a record store, but underneath was the actual like villain, you know, it's like the actual like villain headquarters. It's like nobody ever thought to look there. Crazy, right? And the way they access it was kind of fun. They do use a bunch of licensed music throughout the film. I, I'm not really offended by it because it was period accurate. A lot of it was 70s music. It had a lot of disco music. It had a lot of classic rock music. Like it made sense for what was there. It's not like they used something that came out 2 years ago, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, that just made people say, "Oh yeah, I remember that song," that kind of thing. Yeah, that is one thing that I think I already noted somewhere in the internet before about Sonic the Hedgehog 2 as a movie. They used a couple tracks of music just because, hey, look, it was a TikTok viral sensation for a bit. Or, hey, it's related to the scene and there is a joke in there, but they cut the joke. So it feels less purposeful to the average user. It's like I'm glad I know it, but the joke itself was lost on most people who probably don't know what the song is in general because they didn't even have any words saying it. But I digress. Again, do you see a pattern here? I do actually own Rayman 2, mostly because it's part of a collection of games I call library games. These were games that I used to rent from my local library. Um, so a long time after I had tried to go back, try to find all the games that I had available in the library, Rayman 2 was one of the ones that I knew was there, but never had rented or played. So I do own it. Um, I don't know if it's pivotal of playing Rayman 1 before Rayman 2, again, sequeling or whatever. Um, but at least knew that Rayman 2 The Great Escape was on N64 back in the day. What's that? Axel Plate, welcome to the stream. Just went to the new Minions film. Yep. The roof is not sand blue. This is actually teal. Might be a little bit of a lighting issue here. So yeah, no sand blue is used in the entire set. Yeah, that's true. Each of the villains didn't have a lot of personality. It was just kind of like they're just there to be something different. It would not surprise me, especially with the vehicles, if they were just there for marketing, where it's like, oh yeah, this guy has a giant, you know, a giant like his main thing is about roller skating and spikes, and his vehicle has a lot of wheels and spikes. Buy our toy, kind of feeling. Um, do I have to line these up a certain way? I know it's done that before with this gear pieces. It's like, oh, you got to line it up a certain way. I think Super Mario sets had that, but nope, doesn't say anything. Arrows don't point to each other or anything like that. Yeah, that's true. I don't think a lot of people got that reference either with the kiss drawing, and then trying to figure out like where the MacGuffin went, and like what means he's trying to describe it. So obviously it's gibberish. You don't know what he's saying, but like you see like a drawing pop up of like what they think based on the observations. So yeah, there was a couple things like that. Like I said before about the Kill Bill reference, where it's like they're just dressed like it because they're dressed like it. You know, it's just a reference. It's not like they found a closet of these or anything. You know, they just show up with them on, and some people will get it, some people won't. I mean, hey, when I was a kid, I didn't get every reference in every film. Um, I know now of some references. How the you want to talk about one I didn't get the dramatic chipmunk that the viral clip that like early days of YouTube where it's like the chipmunk that's at like some birthday party or something and he turns around. Actually, I don't know if it was a birthday party. I've looked into the source of it before and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what it's from. But I don't remember it all right now. That clip uses a sound from Young Frankenstein. And I didn't know that at the time. And I've watched the movie plenty of times, at least 10 times. And I still, it only picked up for me like in the past year. That long it took me to finally be like, oh yeah, that's like the dramatic cue that they use in Young Frankenstein. Because I watched Young Frankenstein, and it got to the scene where it shows them like going up to the castle in the carriage, and that song plays, and I'm like, oh, that's the dramatic chipmunk sound. You know, like you associate it with the thing you heard it from, but not the thing it originated from. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm not surprised if things like that happen for kids, where later down the way they're gonna find out, oh, that's what it's from. Here's another good example of that. Speaking of Kill Bill, the Vonage commercials back in like the 2000s. I did not have any idea where that song came from. Whether it's like woohoo, woohoo. I'm not gonna be able to sing it well because, like I said, sore throat. But I had no idea that was from Kill Bill. I tried to look up the song. Just I don't know how it got in my head recently, like past few weeks. Remembered the Vonage commercials just happened, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'm cool with this. Maybe I'll watch Kill Bill. I've actually never seen Kill Bill. I just know from pop culture the suits, or or like that other song. I probably won't get content ID'd for this again because sore throat. But it's like that song that goes yeah. Anyways, um, it's like a theme song or something. I think from the film because I've looked up the video before and I was like, okay, sure, that that happened. That's a thing. I'm okay with that. But yeah, like pretty much a lot of this set is set dressing. It doesn't really have to do with the film all that much. Unless this is supposed to be that training area for the whatchamacallit, for that acupuncture lady, where she teaches a bunch of the martial arts. Um, Beyond that, it's the set is mostly set dressing. It's just hey, it's in the background for a bit of the Chinese New Year celebration. Um, you have this part that's part of a training montage where they try to like attack it and get their butt whooped by it. Um, this is through a parade in the street and nearly comes down on Otto like that, something like that. Obviously a much bigger one, but yeah. Um, like I said before about the medallion, they show that there. It's not the same as the medallion in the film, but they imply in the set that's what it is. That's what it's here for. Um, there is no golden banana, but hey, I'm happy that there is a golden banana Lego piece. Anyways, the Tam banana caught me off guard. I've seen it before, and I did not realize it would be from this set. Let's see. Oh, just short of 35 minutes. If I kept rambling, it would have been 35 minutes, I guarantee. Um, as a set, it covers what it needs to. It does a good job of just being a nice like presentation. And yeah, if a kid is watching the film and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember the Chinese New Year festival." This set does the job of just like trying to set up a scene and making their own things out of it. That's perfectly fine. Otto wouldn't technically be at the same time as these guys until much later in the film, basically at the climax or so. Because when they first arrive, they're in a separate group. Otto is like comes in with this guy on a motorcycle just to try to find the medallion because the guy had the medallion and whatever. Did I already say spoiler warning? I don't think I did. Although, like I said before, I don't know if this is a movie that really has a lot of spoiler stuffs to it. So, whoops, if I did anything. I challenged Doy to a duel on pop culture references, loving all the rabbit holes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad somebody does because I know sometimes people might have a lot. Can you please explain to young? Oh, yes, the rotary phone. That was fun. So there were only a couple jokes I really like laughed out loud in the film. That almost got me. Well, now it makes me laugh out loud. So a rotary phone before. Okay, where do we go? We're at smartphones right now. Before smartphones, you had flip phones as cell phones. And they were ones that had like a whole series of buttons, and the buttons would also have not only a number on it, but also a bunch of letters. It was like I forget what it was called. There was some kind of actual name for that sort of setup. I used to remember it very well. I had two cell phones like that. But it's like you could either dial with the numbers, or you have those numbers that are like call 1-800 get now or something like that, where it just shows letters on the screen. There are letters associated with those numbers, so you could do that. It's like a number 9 pad or something like that. I forget exactly what it's called. Something 9. But it's like, oh, you could use that for dialing in a number or for texting. Yeah, you'd actually use the number buttons to scroll over to the number that you want, uppercase or lowercase, and then just let it rest for a second to let it enter. Um, Before flip phones, you had the really big 80s phones that are just comically fun. I may have seen one of those in real life before. I can't remember exactly, but I do remember something like that before. Um, I know that they exist. Literally cell phones that are just really big, much heavier to hold. You can't put them in your pocket at all, and a big antenna that you'd have to extend on it in order to get a better reception. Some cell phones did that because I think some of my members of my family had cell phones like that, even like the singulars or whatever. The cell phones did that too. Um, Before that, sometime before that, you have landlines. Okay, landlines still kind of exist, but nobody really dealt wells on them that much nowadays. But same kind of thing, except now you have it that's built into, a phone line in your house. Rotary phones are much earlier than that, but the same kind of thing where it's like you have this wheel, hence rotary, it's rotating. You have this wheel that has each of the numbers on it, and it'll show along there how far you have to turn the thing to get that number to register and wait for it to roll back before flipping to the next number. You know? Rotary phone. I think I can't remember if I owned a rotary phone ever. If my family owned a rotary phone at any time, but I've definitely seen them in person several times before. I've seen typewriters in person before. I've seen the old versions of landlines where you press on each of the buttons and again would have the numbers on there or with the letters. Um, I don't remember if I ever owned a rotary phone, but I definitely have seen them and I understood them for a very long time. So that's another anachronist joke that's gonna get lost in the on a lot of people. You know, it's like I just won't be old enough to know what that is. Um, so that's fun. Thanks for bringing that up, Axel Plate. I forgot about that. Um, yeah, there's like that one minion that was a DJ that still had relevant songs, or period accurate songs. I feel like a lot of the songs in the movie were covers of them, which I don't know if that's playing with the budget of it. Where like, okay, it's gonna take a lot more for the animation. We can't put out that money for licensing the OG songs. You know, if you put Shining Star in there, we're gonna have to put it as a cover instead or something. I'm not sure. Either that or they just threw a lot of money into marketing and it's like, okay, now we have it on Liberty Mutual commercial. Now we have it on this packaging for a product that doesn't even relate to Minions. I thought it was actually kind of cute that it was on Tic Tacs and Twinkies, and the movie actually called them a Twinkie. I think at one point. Um, it's like okay, that actually makes sense. It's actually playing with it. It's funny. It's it's memorable. You put it, general rant about marketing and things. I've bought shampoo that had BB-8 on it, like for Star Wars, just to advertise that Star Wars exists and there's a new movie and whatever. Go see it and spend your money on a ticket. That did nothing for me. I already knew Star Wars. I'm not buying this product because I want to know about Star Wars. You know, I'm buying shampoo. God damn it. But I've seen that so many times with different companies that will market things beyond the reach of the actual product, not tied into it in any particular way, just because they need to get the word out there. You could argue that with video games as well. And believe me, I grew up with tons of those. Is there anything that connects Fruit Roll-Ups to Nintendo 64? No. There's not. I mean, I guess there could have been like one or two games that could have done it very cleverly. There's like a chameleon game on the N64 that you use like a chameleon tongue to go around different objects and levels. That would have been cool. Or even something like Yoshi's Story. Same kind of thing, but in a different dynamic. Um, but the way they advertised them, and I will still remember these commercials to this day. They had fruit roll-ups that offered cheat codes and strategies little on each of the rules of the fruit roll-ups for N64 games like Banjo-Kazooie and Super Mario 64. I will remember those commercials and how that was a weird marketing tie-in even if it didn't make sense. I don't know if that makes it work or not, especially for something that's now 20 plus years old. Ah, 25 even, dang. I think Super Mario 64 was 1996. So yeah, 26 years old on that alone. I don't know when the Fruit Roll-Ups thing happened, but it happened and it's just embedded in my brain for whatever reason. Rant over. I was born in 2001, so I remember my parents using a landline on the wall. Yep, we had one like that too. We also had a tabletop brick style landline before my mother got a Nokia in 2003. They didn't need a mobile phone in the 90s. Yeah, that's true. I do remember the one just hanging on the wall as opposed to just being on the counter next to the living room table or something like that. So, as far as the set building experience, chopping things around. They show in the set that the minions could actually play around with the Chinese dragons. They don't actually use them in the film. They literally are just there for set decoration and for one or two things. You know, like I said before about it. Like Otto just walks out into the crowd and this parade is coming through and this thing is along and he's like wah and it just cuts to another scene. He doesn't get eaten by it. He doesn't use it at any point later. It's just there, and that's fine. It's a pretty good model. It's something you could use with minifigures very easily. Has some mobility to it, so you could actually get some nice posing and circulating it around and all that. It's like a more condensed version of the ones that they did for Chinese New Year Lego sets not too long ago, like pretty much at the time that these sets came out. So I'm not, you know, I'm not gonna really dock it that much. It's just that, you know, it's there. It's fine. Um, I do like, now that I've actually built the minions. I do like that their eyes can actually be changed. You can actually bring them around and do different things with them. So even these on their own, you know, you make different expressions out of them, or I could use the other ones to some effect. You know, at least with these minions in particular, their pupils are exactly the same, so it makes it much easier to swap them around. But I like that regardless. I thought it was going to be a part of the actual mold of the piece that you couldn't actually reattach these. So much appreciated there. You get very expressive with them, even if they have the same mouthpiece. And of course, popping these around at just the right place that you could put them on different bodies and then change the expressions even further. Um, they're all different in some way of how they're constructed. I mean, basic idea of head and body piece, but still nice. The arms I think are new or fairly new because I don't think they're the same. Yeah, they're not the same kind of arms that they used in things like the Angry Birds movie or um, I think Nexo Knights used a whole bunch of arms with little skinny things like that. The Beetle Submarine set had that. I remember that specifically because I own that. Well, no, I don't own the set. I just own the figures. So these are ones that actually have like a pinhole to the arm. Um, they're different from the ones that are used for like that brick mascot. I don't know if he has a particular name, but he looks like a 2x4 brick, has little shoes and eyes and arms and dances around a bit. Different design from those. Those are a lot more like tube-like. They're curved a bit better um, than these are. So that's fine. I mean, it's literally how he looks majority of the film during the training stuff. So that almost seems appropriate using it that way. Um, it does kind of beckon me to want to get at least another one or two of them, or at least some of the other characters, just to have the different kinds of them around. I hate to say that, but you know, like I said, this movie, if I had to give this movie a rating, I would say it's a 7 out of 10. It was good enough for what it needed to be. It actually made me care about the minions a bit and their backstory and Rue's backstory. Um, I'm vaguely interested to see other things from the franchise, but not like I want to watch every single film. I wasn't even told by my friends, "Oh, you need to watch everything lead up to this." We just kind of like went in cold with it. Um, I know other friends of mine who watched this film obviously know the other movies, so I'm sure their opinion about it differs a bit from mine. Whether it's running over the same ground or adding something new, I'm not sure. But at least I didn't. It was good animation. There was good voicing. You know, all the standard stuff worked as it needed to, and as a film, you know, it's not one I care to see again, or at least one see for a while. It didn't draw me in that much in that way, and I don't think I had really a lot of other issues with it, other than okay, it did its purpose, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, 7 out of 10. Um, I debated last night 7 or 8. I'm usually not. First of all, I'm not usually one to use that system of rating things out of 10 or 5 or even a letter grade. Even when it comes to Lego sets, I don't do it that much. Um, I figured my enthusiasm and how I've talked about it up to this point would probably tell more than a letter or number will, even though it's nice categorically having that. Um, but also, I've also been inconsistent with those, and sometimes I change it later or bump it up or down a little bit from what I like. I said, yesterday I thought, oh, 7 out of 10, maybe an 8. So I don't know. I for right now, 7 has been sitting okay with me. It's not one that I care to get again for DVD or anything. It's not one I care to watch again. Pretty much, in the theater. If I find it on TV, anything like that. Um, yeah, it's not doing that much for me as a film, just in general. Like, animation and everything was fine, but it wasn't anything top notch that I said, "Oh my god, I can't believe that happened. I do that with this." You know, it wasn't that highly impressive in that way. Um, the reason they didn't need a mobile phone was because mobile was more expensive than landline. Yeah, that's true. I guess apartments needed mobiles more than houses because of cheap landline installation. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, nowadays, I don't know. It's like you could still fill out a job application and it'll have an option of phone or mobile, but nobody would really think twice if you didn't have the, or if you only had the mobile and you didn't have the home phone number. Um, 137. Okay. So, dang it, pressing the wrong button here. As far as the rest of the set goes, all right, not a lot to build here. It serves a purpose of being just a weapons rack. I kind of would have wanted a little bit more out of this, considering how these areas are beefed up quite a bit. But I guess that's, parts budget wise. There you go. That's how it would look a little bit better. Even on the box, it kind of looks like that. Where it's like, yeah, you put the Chinese dragon over here. Now it seems like a more fleshed out thing, and you have someone that's carrying it, so you could actually use it, um, or whatever. It doesn't really. I understand that they wouldn't put human characters in here that would be carrying this because they don't serve any purpose to the film. It's not what you would get into the set. There's very few human characters in the film that you would actually want as minifigures, and so far they've only made it as Gru. So actually, no, I stand corrected. Gru and someone else that I forgot their name. I will admit I can't remember the villains' names. I don't know if that's a bad thing, but yeah. Although I do like that the main portion of the set basically harkens back to Ninjago. Like I think when I think about this play feature, I think about Monster Fighter and Ninjago because they both shared it pretty much in the same year of 2011. I think Ninjago technically had it first with a small set, which I got back in the day. So you have like this catapulting function. You could stand a figure back here. You got enough room to fit pretty much any of those minions. They show in the box Otto goes there, and fair enough. He's got enough room. And these little things are supposed to stand up, so it's kind of like behind these sliding doors or this wall structure or whatever. You just tap along this, it'll push up the walls, they'll slide off to the sides, and you'll launch a minion. I like it. I like how this is still a feature that is incorporated into Lego sets, and it doesn't have to be all the time, but it's been a long time since I had last seen it being used. Unless there was a set in between, I wasn't aware of it being used. But hey, it's still a useful function. It's still something good to play with. Nothing wrong there. It doesn't happen in the film. You don't actually have Otto bursting out of out of a building like this, but you still want the minions to jump around a bit. They do jump around a lot in the film, so why not? And then as far as other play feature, well, there's like this area back up here. I don't know if that's supposed to be for something, but I guess you could still use that for some doll play. Maybe not Otto particularly, but some of the other minions can like hide out there and kind of like spy around in each other or other things going on. Maybe you could hide the treasure up there or something like that. The treasure of I'm a Wiener. That's a different animated movie. um, you got the little fireworks that go off here, so just using the stud launchers as a simple firework. That's something that we've seen a lot of times before. It doesn't feel weird being here. It doesn't feel weird of using that play function. It's good again for kids who want to try just making more happen around the scene. So I have no problems with that. Drago has actually used it a few times. I remember the Temple of Air Jitsu had that in a few different ways of shooting off fireworks. So that's fine. And then we go over here to this weapons area. So like this little training bit. You got this little gear that can spin around. You can put any of the minions on there and have them try to fight with the automated dummy. I think the only problem that I have with this thing is that, at least for right now, I keep bumping into stuff with it. Maybe it's just because the sword is just too sturdy, too standing up. It just keeps blocking, or it keeps hitting against the paper lanterns back here, which I do like using the pumpkins as paper lanterns. That's a cool detail. Um, so maybe this just needs to be angled a bit. I know I didn't build it wrong because you saw me build it with the instructions. But yeah, admittedly, that does get in the way of things. It is supposed to be in the center there. So I don't know. Maybe I could, simple modification. Basically, just move each of these around to fit in the other way, the other connection on there, so it's a bit closer. Even though it takes away the fact that they're supposed to be hands, like I get that's why they're there. But you can see already that makes it much, different, much better experience. I don't think it works as well. Oh, never mind. It does work as well, although, yeah, okay. Honestly, it could almost make it a better experience because then you have them actually trying to, attack the dummy, and as soon as they come around, got them and go bam, and like tearing it apart or something. Oddly enough, I think if this set needed more stuff and to be accurate with the film, I think they could have added in the head chopping board thing. I don't know exactly what it's called, and for pardon me for not remembering the name, not knowing the name, but they had a sequence which they did a few times when training the minions. There's a little montage where there's like this little, it's kind of like your standard martial arts kind of thing. When you think martial arts, you have this little stack of boards, or even one board stacked on a platform, and try to hit it with your head or with your hand. um so they played with that a couple times in the film, of like, trying to practice with it, somebody doesn't get it. um Specifically, Kevin goes for it. He has. That's another thing. That would have been nice having those training outfits as well. I don't know if any of the other sets do. I'll have to look at that in just a second. No, they don't. This is literally the only set that has anything to do with the Chinese New Year scenes of the film. So, I guess we'll take it as it is. Um, Probably why they packed so much into this one, being set decoration, whatever, because they didn't have a lot of sets. They didn't release a lot with this film, particularly for that purpose. So, back to what I was saying. Okay, sure, these are going to be a little bit more eye catching. They did that in Ninjago. I remember that the Gamers Market had a character with an avatar that was literally the Kill Bill outfit. I don't think it's copyrighted or trademarked or anything like that, but it was easily recognizable between the color of flame orange and the black striping, So take that as it will. But like, they have this little board thing that, that they're each of them are trying out. It's Kevin, Stewart, and Bob. Otto isn't in the scene, like I said before. Um, so Kevin goes up to it, tries to hit it with his head, and doesn't get it. He backs up. Stewart comes forward, and it looks like he's gonna hit it, but he just grabs Kevin and starts whacking him into it constantly. But then later, I think Bob is actually the one who's able to get it. He just like hits his head on it, and then they just do this montage of a whole bunch of stuff falling on Bob, and him just looking perfectly fine. He's just like perfectly okay. So yeah, I think that would have been a simple yet cool thing to add into here as a set. Wouldn't have taken that many pieces. Would have been very basic pieces to produce. A couple different colors from what already exists in here, sure, but not much more that you would need to do structurally to make this happen. While I did receive this set as a gift, I can't really criticize it for like, oh, I wasted $30 or whatever. I'm grateful for it as a gift, but for anybody else who was interested in this set, this is just pointing out things that, hey, could have been improved. I still try to review it as it is. Bionicle Forever, welcome to the stream. Now, if we want to talk about the other sets, which I guess we go into a little bit of spoiler territory with that. So funny enough, One of my friends actually just got this set from Facebook Marketplace for $20 without the figures, but still had the basic, buildable versions of Kevin and Stuart and Bob, that you could do here out of the parts in the set. Um, it's actually kind of neat that every one of them can be built in a different way. I did not realize that before. I thought there was going to be virtually the same thing, or even if you change it from one character to another, it wouldn't really change the inside that much. It's just like the face on the outside. This is the next Build-A-Bob. Literally, because there's a Bob in here. But I think of like the Build-A-Bob from SpongeBob, where you have a giant buildable version of a character, and yellow for that matter, with changeable expressions, and even a little bit of movement from the inside of the head. That's actually kind of cool. Obviously, there is no giant version of these characters that appear in the film. There are versions of the characters that appear in the film beyond themselves, but I'm going to leave that as a spoiler, if anything. Um, so yeah, this is just literally just as product, which is fine. They've done that many times before, and they'll continue to do that for other things in general. That's nothing wrong with that. Whether it's Lego, Mega Bloks, anybody else that does construction toys, I understand that. Characters, yeah, pretty much like Kevin and Stuart are the same as you would see them in the beginning of the film. Bob is here for having that outfit that I mentioned, and the one that would complete this scene particularly with the film. I actually don't remember if he has the hat. He might have. But it's there nonetheless. And got a little training area with him too. That's cool. Let's see what else. So there was a brief scene of flying in the film where basically, again, Kevin, Bob, and Stuart take over a plane. They dress up like they're pilots and stewardesses to get onto the plane. They actually pilot the plane. I forget exactly where they came from, but they pilot it to get to San Francisco. Otto goes in a different way, as I mentioned earlier. So this is relevant. Did it need to be a whole set? I don't know if it was that big enough a scene that really needed to be a set. And to be fair, this is a juniorized set. So, not a lot of assembly here in general. But yeah, it happened, I guess. I don't know if I'd say it's prominent enough, but I did have a little bit of reaction to it, to be fair, when they were taking off. And I should have really expected that if I know anything about Looney Tunes, and I know plenty of Looney Tunes and some cartoons that actually do that with like characters not meant to fly a plane. So okay, sure. You got the bike here with Gru. That pretty much has to do with the beginning of the film, where he's using the bike to go home from school. He also uses the bike to escape later in the film, or not much later, but like as like a scene or two later when he's escaping the Vicious Six with the medallion. He uses that bike. This little car, I don't think was part of the film, and they just threw it in just for being a fun little quirky thing for the set, and it's not bad for what it is. It just doesn't have to take place in the film. Um, let's see. I will say, as a bike set, this is supposed to be Gru as a kid. So this bike being big for a minifigure just makes it feel more like, oh yeah, he's a little kid. Now, they did have another bike that could have reversed this, that Otto uses to try to track down the person who had the medallion, Gru. So that would have been cool. But given the nature of this figure, it probably would have been hard to implement that because it was one of those pedal bikes, like a tricycle. You wouldn't be able to fit him comfortably like that. So, and he's not included in the set. So, I don't know. I still thought it would have been, just for accuracy's sake, a little bit nicer. But this is still fun for what it is. Just a fun little. It feels like a thing that would exist in that world. And then we have this set again, juniorized. I think all of them are junior except for these two, because this one says it's 6 and up. This one I wouldn't be. I would be surprised if it was under 6 years old or six and up or whatever rating. Um, for this one, again, being a junior set, just a smaller version of Gru's lair. I don't remember if this rocket car was in it, but again, feels like a kind of thing that would exist in that world. I don't think it's far fetched. Um, they did have a slide in there, so that part is actually accurate. Um, there's not much else going on, just like there's posters and things. It looks like there's a washing machine with some minions in it. I don't remember a gag with that film. It just, again, set dressing looks neat kind of thing. It would have been kind of cool if they had like the from what I can remember of Gru's lair. Um, maybe this rocket car was in there. I'm not entirely. They did have a gag with cement in there where Gru just like walks through a thing of cement. He doesn't get stuck, but but one of them had already just like paved over that, and then he goes back through. He walks over it, paves it again, but he leaves footprints. So that's literally the gag. I'm not saying they need to include that in here because it would literally be nothing to show. There wouldn't really be a thing to have there. For all I know, this plate right here could be it. It doesn't really. There's not a lot of construction experience with that or play experience with that. Um, what else is there? I guess they could have had a DJ booth or even one of them as a DJ. That could have worked. I don't know how exactly they would have made that happen without just giving a new outfit because the headpiece it would be a little hard to fit something on top of it unless you just had a whole bunch of pieces to build it, or a brand new piece. So I get that. But yeah, it still would have been nice if they had like a little DJ booth because that's something I remember from that layer, from that scene, and would give another thing for the minions to do in here, whether or not in context of the film. So that would have been fine. So yeah, there are technically like two other sets, I believe. There's one of them that's in the Lego stores and Lego Discovery Centers, Legoland Discovery Centers exclusively. That has one of the villains from the film, probably the only one that really would stick out and most of the job done with her. So that's cool that they have her as a minifigure. It has Gru, so nice to get that in its own set as opposed to with the bike. But if you want one or the other, at least there's options instead of just having to buy it in just one set. There's I think two minions included in that one. I don't remember which ones are included, but they're there. I don't remember what accessories they have, if anything, even important, like beyond just normal weapons or whatever. There is the later part of the film that takes place in the Chinese New Year that they don't make as a set, and I get it if they don't want to do that for spoilers or if they just couldn't incorporate that or just won't appeal to people of working with that, but I kind of would have liked to see it in some way. I'm not sure. Um, anyways, there was another set. There was a polybag. It's either Stuart or Bob or one of the smaller minions with like robot mech, and they actually pop out the arms for the figure to use robot arms instead to make them more posable. That doesn't happen in the film, or if it does, it's in the background of Gru's lair, if anything. Um, this didn't happen in the film entirely, and I say that because it was technically a mid-credit scene. Yes, there's a mid-credit scene. There was no post-credit scene. There's a mid-credit scene. Spoilers. That throughout the film, Doctor Nefario meets Gru, gives him one of his inventions, and already knows that he's been in the Vicious Six, but he really does help out this kid. So he's doing a good job with that. But also, the invention comes in handy with Gru several times in the film. So it's like again, that's an interaction that makes sense. It's not just baiting like, oh, I remember that character, but why are they here? It's like okay, there's a purpose to them being here. Um, so that comes up again later in the film as a mid-credit scene where Gru goes back, finds Doctor Nefario, and basically enlists him to be his scientist and help with the film or help with his villainy, which would lead into other films like Despicable Me 1. The ship that you see in Despicable Me 1 with like it's got the wings that are really high up, it's got this long silver and a big pointed thing in the end of it. That Dr. Nefario shows Gru, and they fly away with that with the minions in the ship itself. I think that would have been cool as either a polybag or even as a set itself. Like, yeah, technically that's not part of the film. It's a mid-credit scene and it takes place with other films in the franchise, but it, this is the first time Lego has done anything Minions related, and it wouldn't surprise me, as they've done with other films, that they would have had own incorporated in. License. I don't know if there's a debate about that, where it's like, oh, Mega Bloks did that already, and we're gonna do something different as Lego, you know? Or if Illumination had something with it, where it's like, ah, well, we already licensed one building company to make this thing, and it was fine, so we'll do it this way. The Build-A-Bob was a thing that Mega Bloks did before Lego acquired this Minions license, so kind of, I'm not sure, but either way, um, yeah, Indiana Jones is one of the classic examples that I go to, but also Star Wars. What, each of them had a new addition to their franchise. So when the sets came out, the licensed sets released, they had Lego sets and figures based on films prior to that film coming out. So, that's the high hopes for the new Indiana Jones movie, the fifth one that's allegedly coming out, that we will get sets based on the other films before that. Um, we see that with Star Wars all the time, but even when Star Wars began as a license in 99, that exact same thing happened. We had sets based on episode 1, episode 4, 5, and 6. That's how it played out. Um, so yeah. And even nowadays, when we see, the sequel trilogy and, any new additions. So for Minions to really just stick to this movie itself for the characters and things, kind of surprised me. That there wasn't anything that was from the other films. That by watching this one film, I understood every Lego set that was made because they were just made for that. Um, oh, I do remember one thing else. The pack that has Gru and the other villain and whatever there was the Legoland and Lego Store exclusive. Um, that also has, if I recall correctly, because I looked up on Brickset, it has a buildable version of a dummy that fits this scene. So, yeah, actually, surprisingly, a bunch of these sets have this collect 'em all sort of thing where it's like, you could supplement this particular set. This has a whole bunch that goes with it, but you could supplement it with other sets that have other things that go along with the scene from the film. If you wanted to replicate that, obviously, I talk about the accuracy a lot with this, and not just for Minions, but for other things in general, other licensed themes. In general, you could still take all of these elements from any based on the films and enjoy them at your own leisure. You can still make your own scenarios out of this stuff. I did that when I was a kid. I made Star Wars Episode 7 where Boba Fett didn't die. It didn't register in my head that he died in Episode 6. I just somehow thought, oh well, he survived and he escaped Tatooine, whatever. As a kid, I came up with that Boba Fett became the new Darth Vader. Basically, got trained. I think Palpatine somehow survived as well. I didn't write off that death either. I don't know. Again, I'm a kid, or I was a kid when I came to stuff, just altering what I knew from the films or what I had already seen, and nothing wrong with that in general for merchandise. But it is also nice of like, oh, I saw this film, I enjoyed it, and I want to try to play with this stuff or see it in a new medium. A lot of times I've done this with Lego, particularly, that I will watch a film before I buy the sets based on the film. There are only few examples where I did that before the source material. And I say that not just for films, but for gaming in general, or other mediums. Overwatch. I own a couple of Overwatch sets, and I've never played the game. I had a half-hour long, I kid you not, half-hour long review of 2, maybe 3 of the Overwatch sets I still have not published. I made that 2 years ago, and I didn't publish it because I thought it was too long, and I needed to take some time to re-record it and shorten that down. And I didn't. And it's not like I knew anything about Overwatch that would have justified its length. It was more of just me talking about how I didn't know the source material, but I still enjoy it for its own thing. I still enjoyed the parts, the build experience, the play features, the uniqueness of what was built. It wasn't like a set that I've built before. This one at least feels somewhat similar to other sets, but still presents its own stuff. So I'm not too hard about it for that. Like I said before, this play feature's been used in other sets prior to this. You know, the architecture is kind of similar to other Chinese New Year sets or even other, themed sets like that in general from Lego. But it's not inherently bad either. It just exists. So I don't know. This is this is neat. There's a nice little build. These are nice figures to build. Um, I am still kind of curious of getting other ones because you kind of know the minions best from the overalls. I'm surprised that they don't have like a G printed on here for Gru or anything, but maybe it's just because it's a prequel that they wouldn't have had the printing on it for Gru yet. That they just exist on their own. They're interesting pieces that did not expect to exist, and I'm sure some people will figure out ways to use them beyond their intended purpose, which I always enjoy. And yeah, I like I said, 7 out of 10 for the film. Do I want to say 7 out of 10 for the Lego set? Kind of. I'm not gonna lie, because it's like I said, they could have added a little bit more into the scene. It could have been a few more small builds or something else to play around with this. I feel like this area is very lacking. While it's very open and easy to access, it does not offer a lot of complexity or anything compared to the rest of this thing, unless you just count this as again being a part of it or whatever. But it is treated like it's its own thing. Um, I think it would just be nice to have a little bit extra to build with. I would be fine if I'm fine with the fact that they didn't incorporate the climax into this set. You know, avoid spoilers if may, or just cut down the cost of the set. So yeah, 7 out of 10 here as well. It's not a set that highly appeals to me, though I could find other uses for the parts or just the design of it. Like I said earlier, um, it's not like it offered any building techniques that really surprised me beyond the pumpkins being used for paper lanterns. A lot of uses of bananas for the peaking for like the roof areas and whatever. Um, Maybe I was wrong about the frog thing. Maybe it was another set that had a lot of frogs in it. Maybe this is just one that's like, oh, they use the bananas a lot. Because how many bananas do we get in here? One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7 bananas. I can't think of another Lego set that uses 7 Lego bananas. I thought they made the gloating thing about the frogs, but maybe I was wrong. I'll have to find that tweet again. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And elongated review. I did technically review two things at the same time here. I did my first impressions sort of the Rise of Gru on twitch.tv/maniac for bricks. That happened last night, and it was about a half hour long as it was before my phone died. So there you go. But a lot of things in there I basically tweaked for saying here, and one or two things that came up during this as a live stream. So there you got that. There's also this that kind of sets it back a little bit, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's a better way to fix that other than for it to stretch out a bit further, or even just putting this over here and just twisting from the other side. Like say you have the set facing this way and you just play with it like that. Instead. You have Kevin or whoever onto here fighting with it. That's the other way I could see it. Still, it does the job. thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all later. We'll have a Technic stream yet, building some Technic sets, which I like to do every year just to improve on what I know about Technic. Hopefully, pick up some things and learn some new things. I got a bunch of other sets I want to build. I will add this to 30. It was 34 minutes and 34 minutes 54 seconds for building this set in particular. Um, I don't know what else to say here. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. It is Saturday, right? So have a great weekend. I'll talk to y'all later. I'll try to do some special stuff. Now that I'm 10 years old of a YouTube channel and social media, I probably need to pick up my game. I've wanted to do a lot of big stuff, and I just didn't have the time, the money, the resources, whatever. We'll get there eventually.